Hi, everybody. Welcome. Waiting for a few people to get in.
Do we have two David Malmuth screens here?
Not sure. Maybe.
David,
Is that your
I'm here.
autopilot?
we
Yeah.
also have your autopilot?
You guys know what this is?
No.
It's really powerful AI. So it basically records the meeting, sends copies to everybody, and then there's a highlights section. I don't know how it decides what the highlights were, but it does. And
Okay.
yeah, so there you go.
That's so
Wow.
cool. It's
Somebody
like an
used it.
AI.
Yeah, it's an
Very
AI
cool.
thing. It's an AI tool. It's called Otter AI. You can sign up for it. I mean, it's kind of a simple way to record all. I mean, you can record it on Zoom, right? But this records it and also gives you the highlights. It actually, it has a language learning model in it, so it gets all the language, and it's pretty cool.
So when you say it
Wow.
highlights it, meaning that it translates it into text and then it.
Translate into text,
Yeah.
right? So you can read what people say, and then over on the sidebar, it picks out the sort of key summary points from the meeting.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Don't ask me
That's
how
really
it.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. I'm not sure who else is going to join us, but I know that Sean and Clara are very invested in, the success of all of this. And but I wanted to just check in with you. I've already met with Keith and Charlotte for different committees that they're in, so I've gotten their feedback in terms of what you thought went well, what needed more help. But Dave, this is your moment. If you want to share any of your impressions of the event and
Well,
any kind of
yeah, I mean,
feedback, yeah.
I did, yeah, I mean, we came with Pete and Beth, and we were there from 6 until 10:30. I watched the Joan of Arc show,
That was
which
cool.
was amazing. It's amazing. I mean, to me, that was just this kind of stellar. I mean, that's an event all by itself, but to have that, along with, I don't know, 50, 100, I don't even know how many other things there were, but it was really amazing to be out there in the evening and listening to the music and watching this thing from 1928. Mind blowing. God, its political sensibilities were just so extraordinary and really wonderful. So, yeah, that was the highlight. And I liked Malshok, although the room was too small. So
Yeah.
it's super crowded in there. I saw the first, I don't know what the second one was like, but the first one was just hot and crowded. I mean, that's the problem taking over those facilities is you just don't know what the weather's going to be like. We sort of lucked out in terms of weather. Could have been
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot hotter, right?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
but it was uncomfortably hot inside some of the venues.
Yeah,
And
we
of
tried
course,
to get them to do it on the loading docks, and they didn't want to do it. They really wanted this intimate.
yeah, outdoor
setting.
was so delightful. It was just such a beautiful evening.
We got lucky.
And food was the big issue. I mean, I understand that that people wanted guarantees. You couldn't give guarantees, but I gotta, it just makes such a huge impact, or would, to have 5 food trucks so that people don't have
Yeah.
to leave to get something to eat.
Yeah.
So that was just a huge challenge.
Yeah, me too. I was starving. I wanted to eat.
I mean, you get there at
I
5
was
o'clock and
thirsty and hungry the whole time.
right. It's like, yeah, I want to enjoy all this stuff, but my
For
stomach is
sure.
complaining.
People
So
left, I think, because they wanted to just
yeah,
go get something to eat. And it's such a missed opportunity. But again, this is the team that we worked with, and they had their limits. And 3 days before, we thought we had 500 people, maybe if we were lucky, and so there's just no way that they could say, yeah, come on out here on your Saturday Labor Day weekend for this 500-person festival. There's just no way they could
yeah.
pull it off.
Well, that ended
But
up
now we
being
know.
yeah.
Yeah, now we know we can bring in those numbers. So
Yeah, yeah. How many people attended? Do you have a guess at this point?
yeah, I think we were about 1,500 people, and we have been told that we should start inflating that number a little bit for the purposes of sponsorship. I don't feel comfortable with that. But the guy who produces these major festivals says you're never going to get the sponsor numbers without saying at least 3,000 people. And in that
That's
footprint,
bullshit. So you're gonna lie and then that's gonna make it better?
yeah, I don't like it.
No,
I don't like it.
I really disagree with that. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
he's
We
talking
can
about.
certainly say we expect 3,000, you know,
Yes.
like for
This is
future, but I
perfect.
just,
He's talking about major sponsorships. We're talking about sponsorships on a different level.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we need major sponsorships. We lost money.
Hey,
I'm
listen,
sorry to say.
1,500 for a first time event is stellar. To Logan Heights, people don't know what the hell it is. And yeah, so I wouldn't be embarrassed about that at all. But it's, as you know, it's not just about who goes, it's all the impressions from, the videos and stills and
Oh, I can't wait for you guys to see the videos and photos. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure, which of course is going to be hugely important. So I have nothing to apologize for. And the right sponsor is going to understand the opportunity.
Right.
Right. And get it,
Yeah.
and get that it can be doubled. I personally don't like the chain link fence. I don't know if anybody else found that problematic, but
we had to do that because of the so we could either have made it a 21 and up only event, which I did not want, and or we had needed a 6-foot fence in order to have the roaming ability of people with drinks in hand. So that was our only option. We were only going to do the bike rack level and then have security, throughout.
Right.
But because we wanted to serve alcohol, that was our only option, and it like doubled our fencing costs, it doubled our security costs to be able to make it an all ages kind of event.
Yeah,
but I just felt really strongly that it needed it.
Yeah,
I think fencing could be an opportunity if we could cover it with art.
Yeah,
well,
there's
I think
tons of opportunity there, but it was a cost issue. I saw that at the Del Mar Fair, like those screen, super colorful fencing that air could still move through. And I really wanted to do that. We just couldn't afford it.
I hate to say it, but we could also cover it with sponsorship opportunities, and I'll bet that would sell.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, sponsorship
well, I
is
think
our
it's
big...
about integrating the art with the sponsorship in a way that sort of feels
and pays for the art where the sponsor
it feels authentic, right?
Yeah,
it's wonderful piece of art sponsored by so and so, rather than just having the XYZ banks thing upset. So it is an opportunity, but you used it to post things on it, but I think now that you kind of know what that constraint feel. By the way, I don't think you could have done more than 1,500 people. I mean, there were times where it felt really crowded because it's kind of a narrow passageway that you had to walk through.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're really going to have to rethink the planning for a proposed 3,000. It was really crowded in some areas, and also the parking. If you looked up and down the streets, every single parking space was taken. So I don't know how you're going to get twice as many cars.
So some of the feedback that we've gotten to fix that is to do valet parking instead of like these little lots, and so that way people just drive out and so that's one of the solutions. The other thing too is that I think we're going to change the footprint a little bit. So the way that the street moves is that we still needed to allow cars to drive on that street. But the way that the street moves is that it's narrow in some areas and then it widens in other areas. So certainly there was like a bottleneck in front of the warehouse where the fashion show was, because that was the tightest section. And then there were other areas that had a lot of space.
Right.
But just due to some issues with the warehouse people, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to use them again next year, or we don't want to use them again next year. They were really a lot of trouble. So we're just going to push everything this way and tighten up the footprint a little bit. And also the Co-Place people just acquired the property right next door to the soap factory, which is this awesome, gigantic industrial storage lot. And if we get to use that for next year, please put your, good juju out there for that, because if we get to use that, it's going to be such a rad space. It's enormous, and it's got all these like funky structures in it that we could use for art installations or performance spaces, little pop-up experiences. So it basically would be that property, the soap factory lot, and then just like one city block instead of the other one. So it'd still be two city blocks, but it'll move over this way. And that'll give us a lot more freedom for that.
Yeah,
We talked before the logistics committee meeting about potentially having it in a different location and certainly considering a different weekend.
Oh
But then
yeah,
it
the different
itself,
weekend. Yeah,
we would have talked
for
about
sure.
that at the meeting.
yes,
And I'm
yes, we
wondering
did.
what's when and where
Right.
we have those conversations.
Right
and
now it's looking like the following weekend, the weekend after Labor Day weekend, which would be September 7th, is looking like the best one all around right now. I was waiting to hear feedback from this final committee that we're meeting after for a postmortem. This is my last postmortem, to see if you guys had any thoughts or opinions about
Well,
that.
that's after school starts and after summer officially ends. And it's personally, I know it's a very busy concert month. September's is
Yeah.
actually busier than August.
I mean, there's always going to be a something that we're competing against, probably the
What about
Del Mar, like
the weekend
but-
before was, oh, well, I guess, what about the
Yeah,
weekend before?
let me tell you the reasons for why they're pushing for everyone's been pushing for September 7th is that getting people in the summer to attend this thing was really, really tricky to promote because everyone was out of town. Also, Labor Day weekend was not a possibility anymore because it like made us we were charged like 20% more for holiday hours for all the security, the fencing, everything cost us 20% more than it needed to because it was a holiday weekend, the holiday pricing. But in addition to that, when we were trying to promote, like we're talking about group sales to like students in film and theater and dance and all of this, we weren't able to because it was the first week of school. And so the teachers didn't even have an opportunity to promote it and say, hey, can go to this thing and we'll give you extra credit. So they needed at least like a week or 2 weeks in to be able to say, there's this opportunity, I'll give you extra credit for that. So none of the teachers were available to even reach out to say this thing, except for the very week of, and by then it was too late. So, and then if we get too closer we can't get close to the end of September because there's this big exhibition happening with the Getty called PST Pacific Standard Time, and many of the museums will be participating in that. So there's no way that we can get anywhere near the end of September for that. And then once you get into October, then it starts getting tricky with rainy season and all that. So we're kind of like, we need to get as close as possible to the weather of summer, but not be Labor Day weekend, which is why September 7th is kind of growing on me.
I think moving it makes sense. I would encourage you not to do it on the same night as the MCASD gala. I know
Right.
that's kind of yin and yang, right? Which is interesting, but
Yeah.
there are sponsors. I mean, there's obviously a lot of wealthy people that go to MCASD who also are interested in art, right?
Yeah.
Who are interested in Vanguard. So I'm guessing they're probably going to do the 7th because they do the Saturday after Labor Day. So you may, if you could go to the 14th, I think that would be ideal. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
take a
I
look
mean,
at it.
these are all
If you're going to go
great
ahead, if you're going to go head on head, you should know. I don't think that's ideal. I'd rather be able to go to both because I think doing them back to back is actually. Talk to Tony. Tony was at the MCA. And she promoted that as well.
And so she
Yeah,
usually
she was
always
one of the
has,
people who said we should go for the 7th. That's interesting. Yeah.
she didn't mention that. I wonder if I'll check in with her.
I'm
but
sure
we
they've
have
got
to
their date
decide
locked.
like now.
Yeah, yeah, they've got their
because
date locked
I
in
have to
for
put it
next
on
week.
the WDC calendar like ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing with the MCASD donors is, you really are talking about a different category of sponsors. I would love to get on their radar.
Yes and no. I mean,
I agree, but who
Right.
are they and how do we meet them and how does that all happen? We can't just assume that because they are like they exist that they're it's like people tell me, oh, you should reach out to Qualcomm, they'll sponsor you. I'm like, well, who's Qualcomm and how do we meet them and who are these people? It's not that easy. Oh, Bill Gates, I'm like, well, that's awesome, but who are how do we meet these people? So yes, there's these collection of, millionaires and billionaires that are donating to the MCASD, but who are they? How do we connect with them? And do we have to shift our entire festival for these people who we may or may not ever meet? So I know that you want to attend, so for sure I'll take it into consideration. I just don't know. There's always going to be a something like for foodies. We have a big foodie following, right? On usually the Labor Day weekend, the weekend after Labor Day is also the Grand Del Mar tasting thing that a lot
There's
of chefs.
something every weekend.
There's
and, you know,
always
there's the
something.
film
Yeah.
festival
There's always going to be something.
Against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just have to pick a date soon, and I have to pick it and put it on the WDC calendar like this week. It has to happen right away. So
What about
this is where I'm at.
a venue? I mean, I realize it's already only a year out, and a year out is not a lot of time in these contexts, but is there another venue? Should we at least have a conversation about moving it to a location where we can?
Oh,
No,
it took me 2 years just to get this one secured. There's no way I'm going to start spinning my wheels to a big maybe somewhere.
okay.
This is
we
a
know-
sure thing. It's a sure thing, and it's free. There's just no way that I can start for 2026. Yes, we can start talking to people
Right.
for that as the idea of the biennial, and that's always my expectation. Like they only committed to the 2 back-to-back years, so I haven't had any conversations beyond that because they're developing that whole area, and I don't know if that's even going to be available. But there are some rumblings of some really cool things happening there, which would be so awesome. I can share it with you, but it's super.
Well, look, the idea
Anyway.
of transformation, I think, is central to the whole theme of the event, and then of course that's an area that is in search of transformation. So I think it's appropriate. It's just getting people to go to Logan Heights.
Yeah.
the reason
That was
I
part
say
of
it,
what we
and
were
the
pushing
elephant-
against, for sure.
The elephant in the room that I just think needs to be said out loud so we all acknowledge and understand and deal with it is that people don't want to go to Logan Heights and
Right.
could have sold twice as many tickets if it was in a location other than Logan Heights.
Yes,
Yeah.
Maybe
I
not
completely agree.
exaggerating, but I
Yeah.
just don't want
Well,
to
Keith,
ignore that fact. We have a
for
big
sure.
obstacle to overcome and we need to address that and talk about it and acknowledge it.
I think
there's
the
some-
idea of
There's
an
something
urban art.
also, there's something also about the concept of envision. I agree with David's transformation of the moving from that it actually takes place in different parts of the city, different parts
Yeah.
of the county. That to me is part of the identity of envision, that you're transforming different spaces.
And moving from area to area. This one just happens
Yes.
to be back to back here for this year.
Yeah,
because
I think
Understood.
it was our test run for WDC, and that was its intention, but I always thought this is supposed to go from place to place. We thought it was going to be in downtown. You remember we worked for a year and a half to try to make it happen in downtown, and it just never happened. It couldn't happen. So
Right.
maybe eventually it'll go back to downtown. Maybe it'll go to La Jolla. Maybe there's other places. Maybe there's some condo complex that's fresh and new, like similar to Idea One, that we can take over for a one-day thing. There's probably lots of opportunities, but that's not where I can spend my time, right now. And we can spend our time, putting feelers out for 26 now. That would be a good idea, because that's how long it takes to get something like
Yes.
this to happen. It takes years.
I think it's
that we've
important then.
learned.
I'd like to see us strategize and pivot to becoming more of a community partner and more of a presence in Logan Heights and creating more partnership in that community so that we can get more of the local people to come out.
Yeah.
Another creative ways of overcoming this thing that we know about that is something we need to address. And that thing being that there's a bias and a perception in the air in San Diego that that deters people from wanting to go to Logan Heights.
Yeah.
Discomfort.
Justified.
Yeah. Turning to another aspect that's related to development, it certainly looks like the VIP ticket concept was a huge success.
Yeah, actually, we're thinking about expanding that a little further. We
We
realized
should
that it was
expand
too
it.
tight of a space in there. So we're thinking of expanding it to a 2-hour experience with way more chefs and opening up that entire soap factory area.
yeah.
longer.
That's a great opportunity to make more money, to sell
Yeah.
more high
We
price
sold
tickets.
that one really quickly. That
Right.
price point sold really quickly.
Yeah,
getting-
there's not enough value add to go from $20 to 100. I mean, we did it because we're board members and we want to support it, but
Yeah.
you're going to try to really sell that ticket. You may package it with a t-shirt or something, there's all
Yeah,
kinds of ways that you
for
can
sure.
sort of incent people, because it was a really super cool t-shirt.
Yeah. We're and now we have a whole bunch of them.
Oh, really?
We also
Which
talked.
all of our donors are receiving, and and every single meeting I go to for the next few months is going to have a t-shirt involved. I'm going to show up with t-shirts.
Great. I want to buy one. I want to buy a medium,
Okay.
just FYI.
Okay, I got you.
At the logistics meeting, Brooke talked about how popular the golf cart was
Yeah,
with some of the VIP guests, and we thought of an idea to have an even higher level of VIP, like maybe a $750 ticket there's only 20 tickets available. That's $15,000, and they get personally curated experiences for that, and maybe get to meet a chef. That they have access that other people don't have.
Yeah, I think we should have $1,000 ticket, which is really a sponsor. And we should aim to get at least 10 of those, and that's $10,000. And we should offer, a whole raft of benefits for $1,000 ticket.
20,
yeah, it could be
20,
it could
not
be
10.
like a preview
20.
experience, so that they can meet the artist as they're installing that
exactly.
week prior, behind the scenes kind of things, not just the
Right.
day of, but like,
Right.
leading
Yeah,
up to
I
it.
think that's right.
Because that part was really cool, actually. I mean, just getting everything installed and up lighting and all these things where they see what it used to be, and then all of a sudden the magic of
Well, they can come to
what
the
it
dress,
became.
right? Which I don't know.
Yeah,
what kind
dress
of rituals-
rehearsals at night, the night before.
Yeah, with food and drinks, and these things are going to happen anyway. So just having 10 people watch it, that doesn't really cost you a whole lot.
Oh
but there's-
yeah,
yeah.
and I think people like, artists like to have a little bit of an audience when they're doing
Of
their
course.
dress rehearsals.
Well, and people like to, get the making of, right? That people who are spending that kind of money want to feel like they're on the inside. So
Yeah.
where did the economics end up after all was said and done?
Yeah, so we have, I think Keith and I went through it, and I think we lost about 15,000,
That's what I
which
would
that's
estimate.
that's the number that I remember. And we have to really get in there in the nitty gritty now that all checks are getting paid. About that amount is what's coming out of my pocket directly. And actually, I have the thing right here. Actually, 17,905 is what has been paid by me directly out of my own pocket. And another 25,673. This is all just paid to artists and contractors, has been paid by Vanguard Culture, and there's still 11,500 yet to be paid, that I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from, just to make sure everybody, like, all the checks clear. So that's the most important part. And so I think we have that. I think I have it to figure it out to pay everybody. So my expectation is that, obviously it's not something that I wanted to do. It's not something my husband was very happy about, but we had to do what we had to do, and everybody had to get paid. But I know that the organization can fundraise that by the end of the year, which will put us back in the black, but it won't get us to where we wanted, which was that this festival would have a nice surplus that would help fund the second year, etc. So we really have our work cut out for us to raise the kind of money that it takes through grants and sponsors and all of that, so that we can produce this thing next year.
What's the fundraising goal? What's the fundraising goal for next year?
We would have to, we need 100,000 to produce this thing comfortably. That's where we need to get.
We spent 100. We spent 150 this year, I think, right, in cash expenses to put it on.
Expenses.
Also, we started the year with 50,000.
103. It was 103 cash expenses.
Okay. We started, which is dirt cheap. Congratulations.
It is dirt cheap. I mean, we got so much of in-kind. It was incredible. Like the amount of in-kind programming that happened was wild. So I'm really proud of that.
So all things considered, the 15,000 is not a huge number. I mean,
No.
for a first time event, and we were sort of shooting in the dark, shooting from the hip in a lot of different ways. I really
Yeah.
don't think we should be feeling too bad about that. I mean, I'm really sorry, Susanna, it's coming out of your pocket. That's
Well,
terrible.
luckily I've been getting paid since February, so I actually happen to have that money. It just all went right back in. But you know, I guess, you know, I mean, I'm comfortable knowing that the organization can raise that amount at the end of the year. It's around the amount that we always raise anyway. It's fine. Like, I'm comfortable knowing that we can do that. But I am worried, like, how are we going to pay for next year's festival? And so that it's not a worry. It's just like we have to, you know, get working to make this thing happen.
We should get 100 grand from the WDC.
Well, that's what we're going to be asking
Yes.
for. We're going to be
Well,
asking for that
we're not
amount.
going to do it on this call, but I think the next call, we should take that 100 or whatever the number is, maybe we shoot for 125 and break it into chunks. How much is
Yeah.
WDC? How much is major sponsors? How much is ticket sales? How much is other
Right.
kinds of, so we kind of have, we now know what our bogey is, and we can now start to break it into categories, and then we can start putting names and companies next to those, and we'll, you know,
Mhm.
lay out an action plan over the next month, so we all know what our
Yeah.
tasks are and who's responsible to do what to try to raise the money and bring those people into the fold. And
Yeah.
then you're going to have, you know, we're going to have materials. This time we're going to, you know, we're going to have some stuff that we can show people.
Yeah, definitely. And what's also nice too is that next year, you know, we purchased a lot of things that we don't have to purchase again next year, right? So like lighting
Right.
and certain systems and projectors. And there's all kinds of stuff now that we now own that we don't have to, you know,
Yeah, you don't have to buy.
purchase.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think we have a really good shot at getting some funding from WDC, as Keith pointed out. I also think we have an opportunity with the Krebs Foundation, which is now going to be funding arts organizations. So we have a really promising grant opportunity on the horizon.
A couple of things. One is we need to talk about accounting for those purchases and how many of those are what are expenses and what are capital purchases. Because that's going to reduce our paper loss if it goes up
Right.
the sheet, which
Right.
serves no purpose other than it'll
Yeah.
be appropriate.
well, we
to-
have our finance meeting tomorrow, so we can go into it in detail and
Well,
start
I'm
to finesse
leaving,
that.
but I do want to say, big picture, we've got we started the year with 50,000, 25 in the bank. 25,000 of that was part of the budgeting for this. It was a grant that we earmarked for this.
Mhm.
So we still had 25. We still had enough in the bank at the start of the year to absorb the $15,000 loss. And so by the time we get our money from the county, we should already be able to pay you back by the end of the year without even having to fundraise based on
Yeah.
that. We've broken even during this year on everything else we've done.
Yeah, we've
think
been
we
reaching
have.
out to the county over and over again, so I think it's on its way.
Yeah, whenever.
I believe it's on its way. They sent me the form again to sign again, and I copied Kathy on it, and she's like, "Here's the form that she signed in June, FYI." You know, like, so anyway, I totally get. It's all like a little dance. It's a little song and dance of like
Well,
where
they
the money
probably
is. It's
send them all out at
fungible.
once, right? We're not going to get ours on a special day just because we asked for it. They're
No,
gonna send
we were supposed to get it weeks ago. It hasn't
Right.
arrived. That's our
like
been
it,
our
but I
issue.
assume it's in a batch with a lot of other checks that haven't arrived.
Sure.
But who knows?
I have no idea.
Go fishing through the batch and find our check.
How did the artists feel about it?
Oh, the artists were so happy. They were all thrilled. I got big hugs all around. There were really no problems with the artists. And that was a big part of all of this, where I just wanted to make sure, you know, they had a great experience. Think about it. They got 2 VIP parties, right, where they got to be the stars of the show, and they got comps for all their friends to these VIP parties where they got fed and, you know, wined and dined or whatever. And then they got, you know, comps to their event. They got paid a very fair wage. You know, most arts organizations are always trying to still skim the artists, right? They want to have these big events and then just pay them minimum. We pay them a very fair wage, and the checks went through. So yeah. and then they're getting free photos, like professional photos and videos of all of their content, you know, that they created, that they're going to have access to for their own marketing purposes. So all around, I've gotten just tons of wonderful feedback. Everybody had a really, really good experience. And I'm also really happy about the tech team that we brought in, like the logistics, tech, stage managers, that team of people that we pulled together. We know are super reliable arts people, like, you know, work above and beyond type team. And so now we have this team. which I'm really excited about, that we can call on again and again for future events. And that was part of the, curve that we had to deal with after the pandemic. Is we had this amazing team before the pandemic, and this momentum and this like core team of volunteers, and then we lost them for 3 years.
Right.
And so it was almost like starting from scratch, trying to build up this team of volunteers again. So we got a bunch of new volunteers. I would have loved to, and I did hear this from the volunteers, it was a very long day. They should have been fed. We should have had like more, double the volunteers. We need like a volunteer manager. It's one of the things that I've always been asking for. But anyway, we gave it to one of our interns, and unfortunately that person just wasn't, he's a young kid. Couldn't handle the responsibility or whatever. But anyway, so the volunteers didn't feel taken care of, and they should have felt taken care of. So I really would love to have like an end of year donor/volunteer appreciation day, like we always do. Usually at the end of the year, we have some little gathering where we kind of give everybody a recap of where we are, what we're doing next year, that kind of stuff. But I'd love to invite those volunteers over just so that they feel like a little love, because they worked really, really hard that night. They were on their feet their whole night. They didn't get fed. There was no food to buy, anyway, so I just want to voice that's definitely something we have to budget. We tried, right, Keith? We tried to budget for it, but we just couldn't make it happen.
Susanna, what about the attendees? Is there any way to do, because that's basically.
Yeah, we sent surveys out. We sent surveys out, and I plan to send a reminder too, because we got a good amount of responses and lots of great feedback.
Right.
The big feedback of negative was no food all around. Pretty much everybody said that.
Because that's the core audience who will return next year. If they had a really good experience, they will return.
Yeah, they absolutely had a great experience. People were just sending me like, how did you pull this off? How did you do this? It's incredible.
Right.
For one part-time employee and 40 volunteers to pull off something like this, that's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, we'll get compared. And the thing is, that's our issue with agriculture always. And this is that we have the perception is that we are this big, fully funded, fully staffed organization because of the output that we have, because of the quality of programming that we produce. People think we're this big, robust organization, and we're not. So sometimes it kind of bites us in the butt, where funders are like, they don't need any help, they're good, or donors, they're like, oh no, they're all set. They don't really know that we're just, putting it together, very scraggly or whatever, scrappy. Well, that's the word I was looking for, like scrapping it together.
Right.
So that perception, what that means is that we sometimes, like, our output gets compared to organizations that have huge funding. Like, we would be compared to the WOW Festival. Oh, but the WOW Festival was free, and the WOW Festival did this and they did that, and they don't realize they're working with multi-million-dollar budgets.
Millions,
right?
$1
million-dollar budgets, and so it was funny because one of the volunteers came to me and was like, oh, I just love all of this, but you really should make this free. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's something that we're always working against as an organization, is that people just think
Let them
that we have
know
that capacity. Oh, of course I let
it's
her know.
$100 a person to put that on. It just is. It's more than $100 a person to put that on.
You mean of attendees, or what?
I mean, our $100,000 cost divided by the 800 people who bought tickets, or 700 who bought tickets. That's $150 per paying customer.
Yeah. Of what it costs just to break even.
Just to put the show on. So if we put it on for free, just ask them, well, where are we going to get that $150 for you?
Right.
I mean,
People don't know,
like that,
and I don't blame them.
It's $150 a head to do that, to do it.
Yeah.
And we're only trying to get $40 a head from the people who are showing up.
And so this is very typical of producing companies, right? Like theater companies, only theater companies traditionally only get 30 to 40 max % of their budget from ticket sales. The rest is dependent on donors and sponsors. It's the same for us, but people don't really know that. Even in the theater community, people don't know that that's the way it goes with ticketing.
I mean, A lot of times the theater people will say that when they do an appeal for money. We might want to say it too.
Yeah, so
Yes.
part of our, we have a little bit of downtime to start strategizing before end of year fundraising, but we really need to work on getting a really good impact report, like a white paper that really shows like a really quick cheat sheet of like our impact, what we were able to produce, what we were able to accomplish this year and through the years. And by the way, we just won a bunch of our Excellence in Journalism Awards that I haven't even announced yet, just announced last week. And, so there's a lot of greatness, that's happening with this teeny organization, but we also have to make it like a nice quick sheet that shows, look what we can do with this teeny budget, look what we're able to accomplish, help us support excellence, support creativity.
Susanna, if we're seriously going to go after corporate support, we need to get in front of these people by October, November, because they create a budget for next year.
Right.
Right? You don't want to do is sit down with them in March and say, oh, we're looking for money for some,
Right.
we've already budgeted for 24.
Thank you.
We'd love to talk to you about 26 or whatever.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
That
I think we should do a fundraiser just for ENVZN.
Yeah, I mean, we have to figure this out like all through timing, what's the timing of how soon that turns around. I know for sure I've already prioritized, our intern has already been working on it, and I think it's done, fairly done. But that same sponsor packet that I was walking around with at all of our meetings and everything, the 24 version, to have that finalized with now the beautiful visuals of what we did last year. So that one's almost done. I'll get it done this week for sure. Get that printed, and I'm ready. I'm ready to start with the meetings, taking people to lunch, a coffee or whatever. But it's continuing, like everyone here on this call, but also everyone else who's not on this call who's going to watch this later is, help us get into those meetings with people who have that potential impact, who could potentially be sponsors, and also thanking all the last year sponsors to make sure that they're on board for this coming year, giving them some kind of experience or good follow-up that they feel good about. We'll get them some t-shirts, make them feel good, but any other ideas that come up of what we should be doing. And thank you for the timeline, October, November. You're right. And I hadn't thought about that, the urgency of it.
All right.
Okay. Any other thoughts, ideas, suggestions? Okay. Thank you, David.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your day.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye, David's otter pilot.
Can you leave your otter here?
He might, I think.
Maybe he did. Yeah.
Susanna, I just think you should take a moment, maybe you already have, to congratulate yourself on the achievement and to really feel it was, apart from the finances, which we sort of knew and were less than we thought, it was an incredible, phenomenal success. I mean, there were so many things that could have gone wrong, and they didn't. And I think that people were, by and large, really engaged. It was an experience, which is what we wanted it to be. And, people were really, it was an adventure. It was something that a lot of people have never done before, and they went along with it, and they followed the rules, and they enjoyed the experience. And I think you should feel really, really good. We'll take care of the money. I mean, I think the WDC will give us some funding, and I think we'll get funding from Prebys Foundation, and then our regular fundraising. And I think we should do a fundraiser specifically for ENVZN to make the point that the ticket sales only account for 30 or 40% of the cost of the event.
Yeah. Thank you. So at our next meeting, Charlotte, you and I can kind of strategize on what our fundraising season looks like and break that down a little bit. And Keith, you're welcome to join in that strategy session if that's of interest to you.
That's Wednesday. What time?
Yeah, usually we meet Wednesdays at 1.
1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. I'll invite you, and then if you want to join in.
This Wednesday I have a conflict.
Okay. Well, we'll be talking about it for the next few weeks, so I'll add you to the following one.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte and I have always been proponents of having an annual fundraiser. It's something that everybody
Yeah.
does. It's sort of, we're behind the eight ball on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great idea. The thing is that it takes money to make money, and right now we
Yeah.
don't have it.
I think it's more time because it's, that's like not funding the IRS. It's going to make money. So it's,
Right.
yeah, I mean, if it costs 5,000 to bring in 50,000, it's certainly a good
Yeah.
investment.
Well, I
Not
think if
that
the
I mean,
board is like
shoot,
up for,
20,000.
I think maybe that's an ask from the board, is to help us fund the fundraiser or something like that, because I
Put-
can't pull any
make-
more out of pocket on.
Make sure that's on the agenda for the board meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I will be having meetings with like our writers, our team of writers, just their own meeting, because they're different conversations for different groups, right? The board has a fiscal responsibility to the organization, etc. But the writers don't really understand when I say all hands on deck, like help us promote this thing. They're not really they don't really understand what that means. Like, you can't publish your writing on our website if we don't exist. We need everybody to be supportive during fundraising season. It's like there's 40 of us. If 40 of us bring in $500 from our collective team of people, that's a good chunk of money that we could count on every single year. It's not a big ask. Or when you have a birthday, put your birthday fundraiser and make us your thing. There's a lot of ways that you can continue to support so that we continue to exist. And right now is a great opportunity now that we won all of these awards. It's like, here, you guys, we exist because of fundraising. And right now at the end of year, we need you, and we really, really need you. I need to make it a little more clear because everybody just goes, oh, they've got it, they figured it out, they do great things, they don't need us, that's always the perception even inside of the organization.
Susanna, you and I have talked about my role to let the board members know if they're meeting their give get, and now it's getting towards the end of the year and it's time to let them know if they're not there yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be easy for me to get that information by going through the GL, or if it's information you can.
We have that information. Yeah, Bailey has that information for you. So I actually I owe her a PayPal report right now. So when she's done with that report, then I'll have her link you to our totals, and you can see which ones are board members and which is not. She has that all.
I don't know if you recall, there's the new in the budget anyway, maybe not in the general ledger. There's a separate line item in the budget for board giving. So
Board giving, there should be. Yes.
it could all be in the same GL account. That's what how I'd like to see it, is in one GL account.
Yes.
You mean creating a category that under QuickBooks that
Well, we have individual donations.
when it runs, there's a line item that says
board
that.
donations.
I see. So we
Yeah, I've always
I may need to like recategorize that a lot of the donations or something.
I don't think so. Well, the ones that have come in, yes.
Yeah.
My monthly donation.
I've always had
exactly.
I've always had board giving as a separate line item on all of my budgets. And well, and I talk about it at board meetings. As the executive director, I talk about it. Our treasurer does as well. But the board has a fiduciary responsibility to the organization, and that's part of what being a board member is all about. So we can't just sort of sweep it under the rug.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, now is that this is part of the conversation, and then I'm really grateful that Sean's going to be creating this strategy session for us, which will kind of take everything up a level in terms of what's possible for funding and sustainability long term.
So I'm planning to do a treasurer's report as of August 31st. Do you think all of our August stuff has been categorized? Can you get that categorized?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, if you have a minute, maybe we can just meet up really quick after this. There's just two things that I don't know where to put.
Okay.
Other than that, it's
so
all
August,
categorized.
So August 31st, will that include all of the revenue expenses for ENVZN?
No, it will not.
No, and the ticket sales won't come in for another.
Maybe we should run it through after the festival. Yeah, the ticket money came in.
Oh, it did come in already. Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna take longer, but it was
From
about
Eventbrite, the
17
big one.
something.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 17, maybe close to 18,
And that included GA and VIP.
all of it from Eventbrite,
So
from
will
Eventbrite.
will you have a separate report just on Envision?
I don't know if that, well, I mean, I don't know if Suzanne and I have time to put our heads together and knock it out. I don't know. I mean, typically it should be pretty easy in the general ledger. It's all under a yearly gala.
Mhm. Yeah, it's large scale event,
Yeah,
so it
large,
would be easy to run large scale event, I think, by itself. I
right,
think.
but it would
Yeah,
only be
I
through,
think-
I mean, unless we do a special report, it'll only be through August 31st. And if she was
We
paying,
should run it since our board meeting isn't for another week. We should run it through the festival to the
Yes,
to the
I think the
festival.
board. I
Our board
think
meeting's
it's
on the
really-
23rd, so we
Right, I
have
think
time.
it's really
good.
important to report to the board specifically on the Envision finances, particularly because we're gonna report that there was a loss. So people are gonna want to see the numbers.
so we
Yeah.
should work on that tomorrow at our meeting.
Okay.
To
We'll
try
spend-
to
Well,
make
let's just
sure
spend time on that instead of here right now. Let's just spend time on that tomorrow.
I have
Talk
a
about that.
noon meeting, a noon workout, so, and I need to get ready for that. as
Yeah,
well.
that's what I'm saying. We'll spend time on it tomorrow.
Oh,
Or do
tomorrow.
you?
No, I
Yeah,
have a couple minutes to do those two expenses, but I
Okay.
don't have a lot of time.
okay. Well, Charlotte, I think we're done then here. We're gonna spend a few minutes on that and
And I'll
thank you
talk-
all, everyone who's
talk to
still
you,
listening to this
on,
conversation. Thank
I'll
you all for
talk-
your support. I'm super
uh,
grateful for you.
Talk
We'll
to you
talk on
the-
Wednesday. Yes,
Okay,
my love. Thank you.
Charlotte, I have a
Bye-bye.
question.